All right.
I like how you're the complaints person.
All right. He wants to.
Does anybody need a break real quick before we continue? Everybody good? Okay.
One of the things that we deal with a lot at the police department is a complaint on an officer or something along those lines, or compliments as well. And so this is going to kind of go over the process for that and how we look into them. We do have awards that we hand out, like life-saving awards or distinguished service awards, and we try to make those pretty meaningful and distinct, so it's not just any little thing, but it's got to be something that really means something. Somebody's life was actually saved, greatly affected. Anyone who observes an officer either doing something that they feel they shouldn't be or they feel is exemplary can submit letters to the chief or the supervisor, and those would get routed through to see if they meet the standards for these awards.
So I want to talk a little bit about the complaint process before he gets in it. So back in 2013, we were seeming to get a lot of complaints. And what I mean by a lot was like we had 6 formal ones and then a handful of others. And so I heard about this Axon body camera, so I talked to the city manager at that time, Rick Klein, and I said, can we get these? He goes, sure, get them. So we were way ahead of the game on getting them. Some of the officers at first, oh, this is Big Brother, you know. Well, not too long after we got them, let me back up just a little. So when we get those complaints, they take a lot of investigation where the camera helped that. And we would learn over time that a lot of investigations weren't, by talking to people that were there and saw it, weren't what was, you know, reported in the original complaint. So when we got those cameras, the first thing they say, they'd call, I need to complain on your officer. I said, sure. Let me pull up the video. Can you meet me at the PD in 15, 20 minutes? And it'd be silence. And then, you have video? Yes, we do. Click. So after we got the cameras, those 5 or 6 went down to 2 complaints a year on officers. And what we noticed more than anything was people that had an active aggression, actually trying to fight officers and stuff, went down from like 26 a year to just a handful, 5 or less. So cameras actually help. So they help both ways. They help keep the officers honest, and if they mess up, it's recorded and we deal with it, but it also helps keep the public honest. So it was a great thing, and not too long after they saw what those cameras were doing, the naysayers got on board. So that was in 13 before we had to have them. Now it's mandatory by the state of Colorado that each officer has to wear them.
So when do you have to have them on? At all times, like when you're on the clock?
No, but when you're dealing with the public.
Oh, okay.
So if somebody comes to see me, wants to talk to me, I've either got to have them come to my office and set it on my desk, or put it on and go to an interview room and turn it on. Like anytime the officers go on a call, they have to turn it on. Now,
And
just stopping for loafing jug to get a soda and talk to the clerk there, no, they don't have to turn it on. If something comes up, they will turn it on immediately. Is that what you're going to say here?
Yeah. So there's a new state law that came about starting in around 2020, and now all peace officers in Colorado are required to have them, and there's a few standards for activating them, which mostly mirror our department policy since I started, so almost 9 years ago now, where you need to have them on if you're in contact with the public in a way that somebody might be reporting something, complaining about something, or becoming hostile or aggressive, or those types of things. So they're pretty easy to activate. You just push the button on your chest and it starts recording.
It's just one of many unfunded mandates that come from the
How
Capitol
long do you have
here.
to keep recordings for?
The whole interaction.
I mean, like, how long do you have to save
after
them?
they're done.
Like,
Oh.
yeah. Like, if I complained, like, oh, last year on this date, would you be able to pull that up?
It depends on the situation. We have our case reports, so anything that we took a report on where a crime was reported, those are saved indefinitely. We have a file system we download, save the videos to, and then after a certain period of time, all of those records are archived on a server hard drive, and we can pull them up as long as we have access to that.
So our normal call where a case isn't drawn is called incident only. So they categorize it as that, and after 180 days after the incident, it automatically wipes itself out. So
yeah. All right. So complaint process, to go over what we do. So the process would start with a citizen calling or coming into the police department to file a complaint. We would ask if you want to file a formal complaint or if you want us to just look into the complaint. Basically, the difference in that would be, am I getting a statement written from you that you want this investigated, you want to know what's going on with it. It is my obligation as a supervisor to investigate any complaint reported to me. It doesn't matter whether you want it to be formal or not. I would still look into the complaint and make sure that there's nothing there that I need to be seeing. So even if you don't want to put it on paper, we'll still look into it. A complaint has to be a violation of policy or law in order for us to actually do anything about it. Our policy is, it's a good policy that's been vetted by a lot of lawyers, law enforcement, executives across the nation. We use a policy called Lexipol, so it's kind of the best practice policy that you can get out there, and it's important. We pay a little bit for it, but it's worth it in the end. And then, of course, if it's a violation of any state or federal law, then that's also a big deal. We've got to make sure we're looking at those, and we'll investigate and handle it as we need to. If there's a dispute over a traffic ticket or a criminal violation, they don't fit into the categories. For example, if I say you're speeding or you failed to stop at a stop sign and you say, no, that's not right, I did stop at a stop sign, you come to me as a supervisor and say, your officer wrote me a ticket for this, but I did stop, I would say that matter needs to be handled in court. That's where the officer would then have the burden of proving how he knows that you didn't stop. A lot of times those are based on observations, and it would be then up to the judge to determine what happens. So those have to be settled in court, but we would look at complaints on, well, we'll go into a little bit more, but most of the time it's like rudeness or something for an officer. So the complaint is then investigated thoroughly by a trained investigator, which are our supervisors, and they will look at those and make a determination whether or not they feel there's any merit to the complaint and if a law or a policy was violated. And then we would send that finding to a law enforcement review board and then to a citizen review board.
And these are formal complaints.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if I broke that down. I did talk about what a formal complaint is. If you don't want a formal complaint filed, we would still investigate the complaint. If we determine there was a violation or something, a conversation we had, we would document the fact that we did feel that the officer needed to make a correction to his action, but it wouldn't go through this whole thing. So if both...
That's my line, but go ahead. Yeah.
So,
let me talk about that. I'm the
important.
final say on what it is, and I will not go against the boards and everything. I just sign off.
So who's on the law enforcement review board?
It's usually the sheriff, a trooper, or you guys, that type of deal. One of the things I have a lot of problem with, everybody wants to talk to me immediately. And I'll come in and say, okay, and once they start, I say, I'll listen to you, but I really need to not be hearing this because I have to look at all the evidence from the investigation, and then that helps me make my decision whether to agree with it. And so I'm the last person, and I have to sign off. The only thing after me, if they don't agree, then is the city manager. Take it to the city manager. But so I do talk to people as much as I can, but once they start, they have a complaint, I'll ask them, do you want a formal complaint? And they say yes. I have to put you with an investigator then, and I explain the process.
So if it's one of your officers, do you have an outside person come in also?
Depending on the severity of it, it may be outside that investigates it completely. So yes and no.
Yeah.
And we like that. That's good for us because it does keep us honest. Like the cameras, we want to be. There are good officers out there. There's bad officers out there. If you're a good officer, you want somebody else looking at it because it helps to prove your innocence. You're right. So, like the chief was saying, we don't receive a lot of complaints, especially more so now that we're wearing cameras. What do you think the majority of complaints against law enforcement officers are?
Being treated like unfair or
Okay.
discrimination.
Yeah, that's one of them. Any other thoughts?
Excessive use of force?
Not
They
as much as
they
you
are.
think.
Yeah.
That's the number one, right? He was rude to me. I kind of cheated earlier and I gave it to you.
Oh.
So, but yeah, I guess that could fall under yours too.
Okay, yeah.
Excessive force is another one. But yeah, just officers not being polite or maybe saying things that they shouldn't have said. The body camera is awesome. I know, so the chief came from a time where there were no body cameras, right? There's back in the, well, I'm not gonna go how far back, but you guys already heard it. And I think the majority of officers at that time, it was a hard transition. I came into law enforcement in 2015 and luckily came to a department that had them. For me, I had no issues with it. There was a lot of talk from the older officers that, you know, this is gonna be tough to get used to. Everything you do is recorded. And for me, it was not a big deal. Now, I don't know a single officer that's working now who would ever, if they leave the office without their body camera, they feel naked. I've had officers turn around and go back and grab them because it is just he said, she said if a complaint is filed. Not only is it a law now that we have to have them, but the officers want them. They like them. That protects them from these complaints.
Do you guys have them on all the vehicles as well?
We don't have vehicle cameras, like a dash cam. The officers, if they wear them like on their upper chest, a lot of it can be seen. You can see out the windshield a little bit. We've had it record speeds on a vehicle during a crash before, but they don't record on our vehicles.
You know, officers are human too, but we do preach to them and ask, treat people the way you would want your family treated. And don't let them get, on your nerve and take it personal. Because the minute you take something personal that's happening, then they're going to, maybe lose their temper, become rude, things like that. So it's hard, but it's something that can be done. Like you said, I come from an earlier time where, somebody said no, you put them on the ground. But I was able to adapt to it and be professional with them and just think about that person. If that's your grandmother, that's the way you would want somebody treating your grandmother. So that's what we kind of preach to them. We still do get some complaints sometimes because they are human, but they do try.
Yeah. So this video is a video put out by Taser, the cameras, Taser cam. Yeah.
But it's pretty much reality.
It's pretty kind of comical.
Your Honor, I was on my way to church, and these officers stopped me, and then they attacked me for no reason whatsoever. Well, actually, the church is a bar that I hang out at, and I was going to meet my buddies, and I smoked a little bit at the time, but the cops just came up so fast, and I didn't know what was going on, and I got pulled over, and this officer came after me and threatened. And he was just, he didn't respect my rights at all. And he came after me for no reason, and he shot me. That video was very bad. I don't remember being that aggressive. I'm sorry. I, Matthew Thomas Johnson, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I've never owned a sword. I've never held a sword. I got no sword, what's up? Never threatened anybody in my entire life. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I was off my medication, and after seeing that video, I'm sorry that I was attacking those officers.
Your Honor, I'm not a violent person. I wouldn't attack anybody. Yeah, I was holding a baseball bat, but I wasn't threatening anybody with it. I know the video looks bad, and I did some really bad things. And I would never do this. I'm sorry.
Your Honor, I have never, ever laid a hand on my wife, ever.
He would never put me. He would never let me down.
I told them that I didn't appreciate them being in my house, and I asked them nicely to leave. My wife fell, and I grabbed her, and next thing you know, they're shooting a taser at me.
Guess he hit me a little harder than I thought.
Maybe I pushed more than I thought. I don't normally do stuff like this. You know, I know I probably said a few things to the officers I probably shouldn't have said. And
Why wouldn't he? He's a good boy and he wouldn't hurt anybody. He's misunderstood. It's those police. They attacked him.
I guess I was drinking and I was smoking some funny stuff. I do get kind of crazy when I do that stuff, and I don't mean to hurt nobody. Maybe things got a little out of hand. I'm sorry, Mom.
That was a commercial with actors, but some of it is pretty realistic. A lot of them, you know, when they come to court, they have a suit on, they cut their hair, they're cleaned up, things like that. So, you know, there are realistic parts on it, but what happens, and like we said all along, if the officer messed up, that shows too. So the cameras have been a great thing.
So the compliment process is initiated, like I was talking about before. If you see an officer do something or perform, act a certain way that you think is admirable, you want to make sure that officer gets recognition. We love these, and I'd much rather take one of these than a complaint, obviously. So it's initiated the same way. We also encourage the supervisors on the street to watch for this type of behavior. It's amazing every year how many officers will go out of their way to help somebody out. Officers buying gas for a person that's broke down on the side of the road, buying lunch for somebody that may be a little tough on their luck, just going out of their way above and beyond to serve their community. Happens every day right here. We want the supervisors to recognize that. Sometimes the officer doesn't say anything because that's who they are. That's just part of who they are. So we encourage the supervisors to watch for that. If you guys see something like that and you want to bring it forward, all you have to do is let the supervisor know. Since 2004, we've had 21 officers awarded life-saving awards.
Wow.
That's actually where they perform CPR or some sort of life-saving measures.
Putting themselves in danger's way to try and rescue somebody that's hurt, those types of things. It happens all the time. We like to recognize them for it. 4 officers have been awarded the Distinguished Service since 2012.
What does it take to get that?
You might know better than I do.
More of going above and beyond the normal call of duty. You know, something like going in a fire, even though that's not smart for an officer, and we should let the firemen do that. But one of them was the officer went inside a burning house and drug somebody out, things like that.
We had one a couple months ago, didn't we? A life-saving award?
Yes.
We recognized an officer at...
Yes, Sergeant Ward. Do you remember what it was for? I can't remember what it was for, but yeah, he performed CPR or something.
Yeah, it was a phone call. I should remember,
Definitely
but.
look at that.
And that's one of the
Yeah.
21.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I know we awarded a couple officers, ran into a burning house and saved some people, got some burns. Good stuff.
So how far back do you go? Is it gotta be something recent or can it go back years and years?
Well, Sergeant Moore's didn't get turned in for almost a year till after it happened, so, yeah, as long as we have the, you know, the letter from the supervisor or the citizen. But we do like to, when we get them, to be able to, you know, get the award made and get them to them in a reasonable amount of time, but, yeah.
So even if they don't qualify for one of these awards, do you like personally let them know, like, we received a letter about you
Yes, they
because
would
you did
get,
something greater?
we give them the original copy, you know, now with being able to put everything on a scanner and put it into a PDF for their electronic file, we give them the originals and the electronic copies in their file.
We use an electronic performance tracking system too. And so all of the supervisors are encouraged to make sure that they're looking for that stuff and sending it up, you know, even if it's, hey, I noticed you bought a sandwich for a homeless guy that needed some food, or whatever the case may be, they can submit those. They don't need any approval from the chief or anybody else to recognize them.